On about the sixth day, I realized that the 4 tiny red welts on my chest were not mosquito bites. It was our third week of a month's sojourn in Kruger National Park, South Africa, where I was one of a team of 14 biologists studying the movements and roosting habits of bats. A small group of us were taking a lunch break during a foray on foot to track the locations of several radio-tagged African yellow house bats. I had noticed that the welts were becoming larger and itchier with each passing day, but had shrugged it off, thinking I must be more sensitive to the bites of whatever African mosquito had had its way with me. As I absent-mindedly scratched the bumps through my shirt between bites of a sandwich, I felt a strange sensation, a faint tickling. I peeled off my shirt and scrutinized one of the welts. It was moving. Years earlier, I had read of large botfly maggots tunneling their way under the skin of the arms and legs of a teenager who had miraculously survived a mid-air plane explosion en route to Lima in the 1970s. Her earthward plummet was cushioned by vegetation, and she awoke, still strapped into her seat, in the Amazon jungle. Armed with courage, determination, and a knowledge of edible plants she had learned from her botanist parents, she survived a 12-day solo hike through the bush to civilization. My infestation was less dramatic. These were not botflies. Back at camp, Leo Brock, our South African park ranger who happened to be an authority on parasitic flies, soon identified my uninvited guests as African skin maggots, Cordylobia anthropophaga. Anthropophaga translates to man-eater. Drawn to the rank odor of sweaty clothing I had hung up to dry, the mother fly had laid her eggs on the unclean garments, and when I had redonned them thinking I could get away with a second wearing, the maggots, stirred by my body heat, had emerged to tunnel through my skin. Burrowed headfirst into my flesh, the hungry grubs breathed through a minuscule hole at the surface. My 4 tiny wounds were painless, but itchy. I should say that while the label man-eater is technically true, this was not the sort of consumption that has given certain sharks and tigers their ill-deserved reputations. I wasn't about to lose a limb or spill blood. Nevertheless, it is disconcerting to discover another creature gnawing away at your flesh, however small. Suddenly, my own lunch was displaced by a new priority concerning someone else's. I wanted them out. An hour later, while I posed for photos at our campsite along the Luvuvu River, Brock instructed me on how to remove the maggots. Just rub a little Vaseline over the opening, and you'll be able to squeeze them out in about 30 minutes. That's comforting, I thought. Easy for you to say. I retired to a shady spot with a tube of Vaseline and a good book. An hour later, I had expressed 3 pearly white, rice grain-sized maggots. The 4th one held out until the next day. Not only was I the only human on the trip to host African skin maggots, but I was at that time the only person in history to host them at our location, according to a delighted Brock. Common though they are, African skin maggots had not been recorded that far south on the African continent. I was soon being lovingly referred to as the ecosystem by my comrades, and I became the butt of hygiene humor for the remainder of the trip. Apparently, none of them caught the irony that I, the only vegetarian in the whole group, should be the one whose flesh was deemed most suitable for consumption by a fly. Unpopular and important. Let's face it, flies do not win popularity contests with us. Among our most feared animals, flies are vastly outranked by the likes of spiders, snakes, lions, and crocodiles. But if one were to survey humankind for animals we most dislike, flies would make many top 10 lists. Of all the major groups of insects, the flies are the least understood and most detested, writes entomologist Mark Dayrup in his 1999 book, Florida's Fabulous Insects. There are no apologists for flies, there are no lobbyists or hobbyists for flies, there are no fly watchers, no fly gardens, no picture guides to flies. Dayrup's last claim has been rendered obsolete, as we'll soon see. For sheer repugnance to humans, an adult fly is surely trumped by its fellow insect the cockroach. But a juicy fly maggot propelling itself across the putrid flesh of a rotting carcass with successive undulations of its viscera visible through translucent skin makes for stiff competition on the yuck scale. Then there is their dastardly lust for blood. While most of us go through life without playing host to a flesh-eating maggot, it is a rare human who has not suffered the unsettling whine of a mosquito or felt the familiar itch of her bite.